Okay, what's going on, y'all? This is Michael Mouse with the Plot Twist 215, and I said a second ago, to our very special guest today. I feel like I made it. I feel like I'm. I feel like I'm.
Whatever.
I feel like I made it. I do, man. I feel like I made it to the big. I want to say the big leagues, but big leagues ain't really. I don't know, man. I made it. All I know is that listen, Mom, I made it. They said I wasn't gonna make it. They said I wasn't gonna do it. What's that? What's this genre with who's it? Oh yeah, all my life. I'm sorry, never mind. Anyway, I made it, y'all. But no, this is Michael
Just
Mouse, the
kidding.
Plot 215, and we are, yeah, man, we're here with a very special
Oh
guest.
gosh.
It's been a minute actually since I did an interview. I mean, it's been a minute since I've been like consistently posting on podcasts, and so that's, we here though. We made it though. We here, but
We're here.
nonetheless. Um, Let me I'm going to introduce introduce our guest real quick in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about how we got here. So a couple years ago, I don't know, I just had like the idea of like, just kind of creating content or putting out some type of series based on interviews really for to support those who are content creators. Airing towards Christian content creators, though you don't have to be a Christian to benefit from the conversation at all. But like just on different topics. And so, and those topics, as I thought about them, I thought about people who I would interview. I've been blessed. God's blessed me, blessed me with some great, awesome people in my life, and those I consider friends, and those I've been close to for a minute. And so that's one of the people who's on here today. I feel like again, I feel like I made it. I feel like how do I feel like? What do I feel like right now? I feel like 2000. Talk about 2024 started off crazy, but yo, all I know, man, is that I mean, after tonight, you may not hear from me for a while. I may be like on the island.
Whatever.
You may not, y'all may not listen. Y'all definitely gonna hear from me.
Whatever.
You may not. I don't know, man. You may see my toe. I'm gonna post up like pictures of my toes, like in the sand or something like that somewhere. I don't even
Whatever.
like the beach like that. I'm probably gonna do it. I don't. But no. So yeah. So this on this topic of like finding your niche, I feel like it's such a important kind of like topic for those who are just kind of starting and kind of thinking about what should they do and should they even have any? Should they go super general? Whatever the case may be. So I feel like that conversation. Actually, Dara Alston, who we have here today. I wish I had sound effects. I can play like the hand clapping and stuff like that. But like that effect. But yeah. Who actually has been awesome. I mean, even for me, like kind of thinking through things over the years and kind of encouraging me and all that type of stuff. So I think it'd be a pretty dope conversation today. But with that being said, we got author. What should we go with? Author, podcaster, lover of books, lover of C.S. Lewis, lover of Jesus, lover,
Um,
all types of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
With that being said, y'all, ladies and gentlemen, Dara Alston, y'all, come on now, somebody. I gotta get that sound effect.
I have made it. Good Morning America, who? Today Show, who? Breakfast Club, who? I mean, this is the premier destination for anyone who is a content creator. So I'm blessed and highly favored to be here. So
As you should be, as you should be. I'm just saying, as you should be. I mean, I'll take it, man. I'm gonna take it and run with it. I'm take the baton.
oh my gosh, dude, I was thinking about this. Can you believe we've known each other for like 20, almost 20 years?
That's crazy. I remember you was in high school. That's crazy, man.
That's what I'm
Wait,
saying.
wait.
Like,
Yeah, I think you were in high school. I forgot.
yeah,
Yeah,
it will like in a few years' time, it'll be 20 years that we've known each other. That's wild.
that's crazy. That's very crazy.
Wild.
I think like that's very crazy. I still remember you. Still
Mhm.
you was a little young squab. You know what I'm saying? Well, you know what I'm
Here
saying.
we
Going off
go. Oh,
the
gosh.
we are,
Oh my
and nobody
gosh.
want to say the rest of it. You know what I'm saying? Let's say they put
Penn State, we are. Penn State, I bleed blue and white.
Yeah, that's cool. Let me end this interview real like. Thank y'all so much for tuning in for the Plot Twist 2 and 5. We appreciate y'all for your
Don't be
your
a
time.
hater.
The Eastern University.
Don't be
I can't
a
even rep Eastern like that.
hater.
I can't even rep Eastern like that nowadays, but
I
it's
know
all
that's
right. It's all
unfortunate,
right.
right?
I
Mhm.
can't do it. I can't do it. I mean, Eastern, if y'all listening, y'all gotta think, y'all gotta rethink some things. That's all I'm gonna say. That's the conversation for another day. But
Mm.
nonetheless, yes. So appreciate you being here with us. on this with me here on this podcast. So, with that being said, right? So I know some things about you. I kind of put you out there a second ago with all the different kind of alluding to things that you do. But if we, I'm gonna
Mhm.
shut up. I want people to hear about you and about your background and kind of what
Sure.
got you into, I mean, about you in general, right? Not just as it relates to content creating and all that type of stuff, but just in general, like your background, and then kind of what got you into, yeah, kind of how this journey has been for you as it relates to, yeah, being a creator in business, all that type of stuff.
Wow, that's a broad question. So please stop me because you know I can talk. So like Mike said, my name is Dara Alston. I'm a lover of many things. But most importantly, I would say Jesus, C.S. Lewis, and Hallmark, like in that order, are my three interests. And I think from those three, that really shapes kind of what you see me do in terms of writing and in terms of content creating and the type of content that I create, which I told you about this even when we were planning
Mhm.
this. I was like, it feels weird to call myself a content creator because I never really thought about it like that. I've
Mhm.
only just saw myself as either an author or a podcast host or, what have you.
Right.
But over the years, I've developed a love for the written word. Language arts is a deep passion of mine. And so I got a chance to explore it professionally through some of the corporate gigs that I've had. But God really pushed me in 2019 to to self-publish. And so that was my first foray into the professional aspect of writing. And so I self-published a short story and poem compilation called Inhale.
Mhm.
And I published it through Barnes and Noble Press, which it may go by a different name at this time. I'm not completely sure.
Mhm.
Um, and then from there it was it was a long road, but then I also published my novella, which is just a word in the publishing industry for a short novel, so it doesn't quite meet the page count for a novel, but it's longer than a short story, so it's kind of that in between. And so I published that called Chasing Wind, and I published that through Amazon. And then I started like different podcasts. I'm like, it's so much. Like this is the thing. That's the thing. Like it's super broad and it's
Mhm.
so much. But I'm so grateful that God has just given me the opportunity to explore all the different interests that I have, excuse me, and then do something with them in some way. Not necessarily to monetize on it because I don't outside of the books, like I don't get paid from the podcast or anything. Like I still do that for free. And the YouTube channel, I don't get paid for that. I That's free. But I'm just so grateful that I'm able to enjoy the interests that I feel like God has given me. And I think it's really cool that I can explore them through the different mediums of podcast and writing. Did that answer your question? I feel
No,
like I
you did. You did. I think I should let me cash app you some stuff real quick, man. Let me get you out for that answer. That answer. I promise you I didn't pay her before this, but I may pay her after this now. You know what I'm saying? Dropping
You'll
some
have to
stuff
talk to my
in.
agent.
It's hey,
Like, no,
listen,
I'm
I
joking.
got you. Hey, listen, I made it
I'm
too.
just kidding.
My
I'm
agent's
just
in
kidding.
right. My agent's in right. What up? You know what I'm saying? I told you I made it. No, I appreciate you sharing that because like it and I feel like we've had a conversation about this, just how you can have so many different like passions and different things like that that kind
Yeah.
of you know that we kind of get to it a little later. I had a question around like platforms and stuff like that and kind of but
Mhm.
kind of how you can kind of what you do can kind of because we have so many different types of things that we like, and so not necessarily having to feel like you kind of have feel bogged down in maybe one thing, but sometimes people can kind of like focus on maybe just one of those things to go super hard versus having a
Yeah.
page that just kind of reflects everything that you do, because
Yeah.
something could connect to someone that doesn't connect to someone else and that type of thing. And it sounds like you're kind of taking the
Absolutely.
role of kind of like, yeah, I definitely see you as someone who has a variety of different things that you enjoy doing and just try to have that be represented on your social media stuff, which has been pretty dope to see and kind of, So like as it relates to Hallmark, right? You mentioned love of Hallmark and your
Yes.
Hallmark shout out, but like what was that journey like for you? Like what's the
Yeah,
backstory to that? Like what's the backstory
absolutely.
to that? Yep.
So I've been watching Hallmark movies since forever, and I mainly watch them with my mom. I watch the Christmas movies, but during the pandemic, because everything was shut down, this was 2020 was my first chance to watch the Christmas movies as they aired. Because as you know, from October to December, we were in rehearsals all the time. So I really didn't, and
Mm,
that's the time that they played the Christmas movies. So I would always have to wait until January, which is why it felt like Christmas always went into January and February for me because I was catching up on the Hallmark Christmas movies on the back end.
mm,
So October 2020 was the first time I got to watch them as they air. And I said, I wonder if anybody is reviewing these movies. And I explicitly heard God say, don't look it up.
mm,
Don't look up if anybody else is doing it. Just do it.
yeah.
Just do it. And I said, okay. And so I came up with or I feel like God inspired the name Dear Hallmark as kind of my love letter to Hallmark, and how much I love the movies. And so after I began to publish a few videos on YouTube, it started on YouTube. I found a podcast of three men who watch Hallmark movies and then review them.
Mm,
And so I thought, oh, that's really cool. And so I was listening to that podcast. And so then fast forward, that was October 2020 that I started that. Fast forward to July 2021. And I was minding my business, going through a rough time during that was a rough summer. But July 2021, we're still on Zoom as a church, right? And so, but I'm getting blown up on my Dear Hallmark Instagram. And I started that Instagram in January because I was like, well, let me just see where this goes. Like it wasn't even a
mm,
thing. I didn't think
right.
the Hallmark actors had Instagram. I didn't think they knew what it like. I was really so ignorant of a lot of stuff. And so I'm getting all these DMs, and this one Hallmark developer that I began rapport with, she DM'd me and said, "Yo, it's so cool. What happened with you and Tyler?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? I know of the Tyler that you could be talking about, but surely you're not talking about him."
Mm,
And so I searched his name on Instagram, and I was like, "Wait, he has an Instagram?" And then I looked at his Instagram, and sure enough, he put my review of one of his movies in his stories. And at that point, you couldn't do a minute long clip in your stories. It was only 15-second increments. And so he screen recorded off of YouTube my review of his movies for 8 15-minute segments. So whatever
oh,
that looks
wow.
like. And he tagged the network, the developers, the writers, and the actors in the movie in each clip. And so he's one of like the big homies on the network. So he has a very thick fan base. And so from that day on, a lot of people found me through him. So he's very much integrated into the Dear Hallmark origin story. And they began to ask me, okay, so what do you think about this movie? And what do you think about this movie? And I'm like, I ain't seen that movie. Oh, I didn't know that was a movie. And so I switched my YouTube to only focus on the new release movies, and then my podcast to be the older movies that I would review for people to listen to if they wanted to know my thoughts on it. But then I had a conversation with another Hallmark podcaster at the time. She's no longer podcasting anymore. But she was like, girl, go ahead, get some interviews. Because I was really debating, like, do I want to make this a thing? Like, I didn't want it to become something established. I just wanted to have fun. But I was like, you know what? I saw the actors interacting and engaging with what I was posting and my thoughts and things. So I was like, let me just try. And so I reached out to one of the actors who was engaging my content, DM'd him, set up an interview, and the rest is history, really. Like I've been fortunate to interview a lot of actors and actresses on the network, including writers and producers and directors and costume designers and set photographers, just kind of getting the whole story, if you will, of the movie making process from the Hallmark perspective. And it's been really cool. It's afforded me a lot of opportunities to attend events, be on a podcast panel, host a red carpet,
Mhm.
do screening events. So it's been It's been a wild journey, sir. Like wild. If you would have told me October 2020, this is what would have happened, I would have said you're lying, get out of my face. Because it's like, and it wasn't like I had to do anything. Like I never pitched myself to be at these events. I just kept putting my stuff out there. And then people would say, oh, like actors, so when am I coming on your podcast?
Mhm.
Why is it taking to you so long
Mhm.
to interview me? And I'm like, oh, well, okay, excuse me. So it's been a wild ride. And it's very interesting right now because Hallmark is kind of in this experimental phase. So it's an interesting time to be a fan. And so I find myself trying to recapture that moment in 2021 where I just was kind of like an ignorant fan and I was just loving the movies and just posting about it. So that's kind of like the state of the union now. But it's been such a wild journey, but I'm just here for the ride. You know, I'm just here for
Well, buckle up.
yeah.
Like that's
No,
like that's
seriously.
so cheesy. Well,
Seriously.
buckle up. Nah, I think that's super dope because I feel like especially when putting out. This is why I really wanted to talk to you about on this topic, right? Because I'm not super big into I'm about to say Walmart into Hallmark. Shout, shout,
I
shout
feel
out
like that was unconscious shade. I don't know.
Oh, not at all. Listen. Tyler, Timmy, everyone, the whole squad over at
Wait,
Hallmark.
no,
I'm not hating on y'all at
don't
all.
do that.
I ain't hating
Don't
on
do that
y'all.
to the homies.
No, I ain't
Don't
listen,
do that to the
listen, you my
homies.
homie. All y'all my homies. Listen, listen, I ain't got no shade at all. I just didn't grow up and this is no shade at all to Hallmark. I just haven't like
Sure,
grow
sure,
up
sure, sure.
listening to it. But I feel like for someone and I'm kind of want to segue into this whole idea of a niche, right? So,
Yes,
what we mean by niche is something that's like a very specific, kind of specialized kind of area, right? And
yes,
so for me, again, I don't watch horror, and like I wouldn't say a lot of people that I spend time with do, other than you, maybe you and some other folks. Maybe I just don't know. Maybe I think there more actually are Hallmark folks at our church, which actually isn't. So I take that back. There actually are a lot of people who are Hallmark anyway, it's a listen. They've been around. They're well established. But my question is more so around because it seems like a very specific area, like doing reviews for a
it
very
is.
specific, not just type of movie, but certain network. That's movies that come on a
Yes,
particular network. And so
yes.
was there like for people who may be like was there ever a time that as you were putting it out that there was like a concern that hey this isn't general enough like or this isn't I know you talked a little bit about like just things that something you just kind of it seemed like you just kind of put stuff out and like listen this is just something I like to do I'm into and if it connects with
Mhm.
people cool but what was that process like for you when you started to think about your audience was it like was it a thing where you ever felt like again this is maybe too niche this is too specific or was it like a thing where you just were putting stuff out because you just like to do it yes, I want to kind
Yeah.
of just interested and get your like what that process was like for you.
So to be frank, I never made the podcast for a broad audience. So I wasn't looking for people who didn't like Hallmark to listen to it. My goal was to create a space and talk to people who didn't have friends around to talk Hallmark shop with,
Mhm.
listen to my podcast. Because much like you said, I don't have a lot of people to talk Hallmark with in my real life. So it provides, except for there's one person who I'm able to talk with now. My good shout out Valerie. We love you, Valerie.
Shout out.
Um, and so that and I find that I am that for a lot of people. They come to my podcast, and when I go live on Instagram, sometimes I'm very blunt, I'm very frank. If I don't like a movie, I'll say it, but I'm talking to, like, I know my audience is a specific group of people, so I don't try to cast a wide net. So I was never really concerned with people who didn't watch Hallmark. Oddly enough, I was when I first kind of was made aware of the pod, because there is a whole podcasting community of Hallmark. Like there, it's its own ecosystem. And so when I was first introduced to it, I was honestly a bit timid because I was like, oh, am I too much? Like, because a lot of people are very either mild mannered or more tempered or more soft spoken. So I'm like, oh, maybe I need to go into chill Dara mode or like WJJZ, like jazz radio mode, or you know what I'm saying? Like I'm thinking, okay, let me chill. But it's like doing Dear Hallmark has reaffirmed how important it is for me to be myself, because it is my true self that people resonate with. I'm finding the more that I do it, it's just like, because they're, and this is for anyone, this isn't just for me. Like, there isn't, like, God didn't make anyone like me. He made me purposefully with my quirks and facial expressions and theatrics and all of that. There's a reason for that. And he made, the others mild mannered, like, it's, and that's okay. But I felt like I had to be them in order to be accepted in that community. So that was more so the biggest hurdle for me. The more that I was doing the podcast in the beginning, was trying to be accepted into the Hallmark podcasting community, as opposed to just being sure in who I am. Because to be honest, there's not a lot of people who look like me there. So, and I am one of the first to do it by herself as a Black woman in this space. So it's a lot of like, oh, well, am I too Black or am I too Christian? Because even the how Hallmark has changed, the leadership is different and the morals are different. And so their priorities are different. And so it causes for some different types of movies. So now, am I too Christian because of what I believe, or are my morals too stringent to still be in this space? Like, that's some of the stuff that I used to wrestle with, that now I'm just like, listen, whosoever will, the door is open, take your shoes off. There's a seat on the couch and we can just chop it up and talk. But yeah, I hope, did I answer your question?
No, you did. Nah, and I appreciate what you
Okay.
shared too, because I think that you touched on something, man. I think that's like so critical around just like anyone wanting to do stuff like podcasting, or like the whole idea
Yeah.
of trying to be like other people, trying to be like you mentioned earlier about
Hmm.
how you feel like the Lord said, like, yo, don't look it up. Like, don't just kind of go out there and start,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because like, so
Yeah.
we can start looking at other people, what they're doing, and then the comparison game happens, and then it's like,
That's
wow, no,
exactly what happened.
right? I'm not like this
That's
person.
exactly what happened. Hmm.
I'm super, energetic or whatever, like super
Hmm.
theatrical. This person over here is super monotone. Looks like people like that. So let me try to be a carbon
Hmm.
copy of that. But you said
Hmm.
that, the thing that people actually gravitated to the most is actually when you're being yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, just being super engaging. And even looking at some of the interviews you've done, like kind of like just kind of looking at, just kind of going through it, but just seeing how
You watched some of my interviews?
I not like of not I'm not gonna say full length. I kind of looked at some of the joints you posted on IG, like some of like the thumbnails or whatever.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think I looked at maybe I went to YouTube one time and watched it, but it was like I think looking at some of the how can I put it? Like the interaction, like the engagement of the folks that you were talking to, right? It wasn't like you
Hmm.
didn't come off as super timid, or like probably by now they could probably got you like in a contacts right now or something like that. Y'all probably,
Oh,
you know what I'm
not even.
saying, Tamara, Tia. Now I mean I don't know, you
Oh,
probably got all these folks in there, but it's like you probably, yeah. So it's like I feel like your personality is super engaging to the with the people, that it meshes well with the people that you're interviewing, and it really serves well with what you're doing, and which, yeah, it makes them, I'm sure, want to work with you a lot more. So I think that, which anyway, I thought that was pretty dope. I think it does, like, definitely, like, I think touch on like that, and it sounds like you weren't really trying to create something that was super generic or broad, because realizing that everyone
correct.
is not going to connect with this
Correct.
particular, you know what I'm saying, it's not going to be like that.
Correct.
So for the people that are, they feel like they have to be super general, right? They have to feel like they can't have a very targeted audience, because that may
Mhm.
impact their, if the concern is like their analytics or that type of thing. They're super
Yeah.
concerned about, I don't want to be too specific because I may lose some. For like, for the person who is concerned about that, like, what would be something that you would like share with them? And I mean, I feel like your journey itself, I think, really speaks a lot to how it can really, it can kind of just by happenstance, all that stuff happen. But like, what would you say for the person that does not have a target audience? They feel like, no, I just want to create something that just reach everybody, men, women, all ages, that type of thing. Like, what would you say
Mhm.
to that?
I would ask them then, what is your why? Like, why are you creating stuff to begin with? Because again, like I mentioned, God created us with intention. Like Mike, he created you intentionally. He
Mm.
had a purpose and a plan for why he created you. Same with me. He has a purpose and a plan for why he created me. So why we create in general, there's always purpose and intention behind it. So I would just ask them, like, so then why are you creating, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube channel, or if you're wanting to be on TikTok. I haven't ventured over to TikTok yet. I'm one track mind, so I'm just on Instagram, but I know TikTok is blowing up and people are able to make buku money from it.
Mm.
But is that your end goal? Like, why are you wanting to create? Because I'm of the camp where not creating for money but for the love of it, but I understand that that could be like money could be the end goal for, and I get it, but I'm of the school of thought where it's like creating, there's a love, there's a passion, there's a joy, there's like an electricity when you do it. So there's intention, there's a reason why you're creating. So I would just ask them, why are you doing what you're doing? Because there, if you think about your why, there is going to be, it's going to narrow it down. Like this, if I think about why I wrote Chasing Wind, I wanted to reach a girl who was maybe about to go to college, in college, struggling with materialism, because that was a real thing for me. I was so obsessed with brands and wanting to look a certain way, an image. And it ruined my college experience to the point where sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to like redeem myself and do it all over again just so that I can, because of what I learned now. But that's what why I wrote Chasing Wind. And it's to a point because I know my why. So I think when you fully flesh out why you're creating anything, I think that's going to carve out, like, you're not going to help but have a niche. Whether it's hip hop, it's still a niche. Whether it's country music, it's still a niche. Whether that could be as broad as you want, but it's still very specific. So that would be my advice, or my thing to say.
No, like dope. Like that's no, I think that's like I think super helpful. Like knowing what. So what would you say is your why at this point, right? So is your why? Is it possible for a why to be different? Like as people go on, like what have you seen? Like your
Absolutely.
purpose? Yeah, yeah. Right. So you and
Absolutely.
you kind
My
of already
why,
kind of.
yeah.
I'm sorry. You kind of alluded to a second ago. Maybe kind of like maybe reemphasize or just your journey even with that, like your purpose over the years.
Yeah, I was Dear Hallmark. So my original purpose was to create space, and it still is. Like that's like the foundation, to create space for people who don't have a space to talk about Hallmark. I'm your girl. Even within, because I'm like, Black women watch Hallmark. I'm about to hashtag that because I've also received a lot of encouraging messages from other Black women who are like, thank you, because people think we don't exist. But right now, I would say my why for doing Dear Hallmark is to just get back to the joy of why we watch Hallmark movies to begin with, because sometimes more than not, I mean, Hallmark can put out some not so good movies and they can bum us out, especially when they put out not so good movies in a row, because we've seen what they can do and we know what their potential is. And so to see sometimes that they can put out in a row so many movies that just aren't good in terms of quality and excellence, and we know what the brand can bring, again, it can be discouraging. So now I'm wanting to kind of, in the words of our Aunt Maxine, reclaim my joy with Hallmark, and just kind of getting back to why I love Hallmark movies, and talking about that. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Cool. Nah, dope. And I feel like that. I think what you said a second ago about like black women, like messenger you and stuff like that. It just made me think about how there are people out there who will connect with what you put out. Like it
absolutely.
doesn't have to be a concern about, I have to be super general. Like people will connect. Like there's an audience out there for the things that you want to put out, regardless of how specific. Like because you have like in the world with like what 8 billion people or so, like there are people online, regardless. Like you mentioned TikTok with IG, YouTube is so like it's so the audience, the potential audience out there is huge. Like we're connected to so many
Huge.
different ways across different platforms.
Absolutely.
Social media's kind of changed the game with that. And so there
Yeah.
is an audience out there who will connect. You're not the only person who likes Walmart. Hallmark. I did not mean to say
This your
that.
second time,
I know,
fam.
I know, I
This your
know, I
second
know.
time.
Hallmark. I promise y'all I can say that I all respect the Hallmark. who like Hallmark, who like, Marvel, who like whatever.
Right.
There's an audience out there for people who really enjoy that stuff. For sure. Like what now in terms of like with platforms, right? I know you mentioned you haven't ventured over to TikTok, but like for people who are kind of thinking about like, yo, long form, short form, like, longer content, shorter content, like what was there ever like a time where you kind of were just like, even those questions sound like how did you go about picking your platform? Like, what was that kind of like, was there like that time where you're like, should I do more so clips on reels or Insta or
Hmm.
stuff that's that's more so, YouTube. I mean, obviously a lot of the times it's like, there's overlap a lot of the times with some of the
Yeah.
different formats that they kind of use, they put out there or allow content creators to use. But like when it comes down to platforms, was there what was like your process with that, like determining what you should actually start, where you should start podcasting or whatever, like what was that process like?
So I started on YouTube because it was quick and dirty for me. I can just record one take, throw it up, not think about it. I don't edit my videos unless it's something that takes place during an interview. And then the guest calls for it, like, oh, we could just take that out, and then I'll edit it. But
Mm,
98% of my videos on my YouTube channel and my podcast episodes are one take because I'm very simple. This is why I was telling you I can't be on TikTok. I was trying Facebook and Instagram. Facebook then fell to the wayside. And so YouTube came into play because it was quick and dirty. I wanted people to see me, and I wanted to, like, I felt like them seeing me and seeing me talk to them. It felt like creating that space, which is why I chose YouTube. And then the podcast part came once, like I mentioned earlier, people were asking me about other movies. And so I was like, okay. And I did podcasts before the Dear Hallmark. I started, I had the Avenue 89 podcast, I had a literature podcast, and then I had a music podcast with our good friend and now Pastor Naj. So it wasn't like I was new to podcasting, but incorporating that into the Dear Hallmark space came from demand, in all
mm,
honesty, and me wanting to keep up with the demand of the new following that I was receiving, because I knew that, okay, so do people on YouTube want to see me talk about these old movies? Not really.
mm,
I made YouTube my short form where I try to be no longer than 15 minutes. And then I see podcasts as a more long form medium. And so I can really talk them through the movie and my thoughts through the movie as it was running. And so that's kind of how I viewed it and shaped it. And I've carried that till now. I used the pod. I literally just recorded one earlier today. That joint was 50 minutes, homie. I had Hallmark is launching a Christmas experience. I had to do Hallmark also has a mystery channel.
mm,
And so they had like 4 new mysteries in the past 3 months that I was up like giving all my reviews on. And then they have a themed lineup for June, and I wanted to preview my thoughts on that. And so I talked about all like, but you ain't gonna see me do a 50-minute YouTube video. No, 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 no. For the YouTube, I see it as more so like quick first impressions, raw emotion. And then the podcast is, okay, I've slept on it, I've marinated on it, and this is kind of my thoughts about the movie. And in from 2020 in 2022 and 2023, seasons 2 and 3 of the podcast, I double dipped in a way where like I would do the review on YouTube and do a review of the same movie for the podcast for people who are podcast listeners and not YouTube watchers. And I did that for 2 years. And it was successful, but it took a lot. Like, because I felt like I had to remember, well, yes, Dara, you're repeating yourself, but people haven't heard you say this, so it's okay. But also, too, I haven't been able to do that this time around with season 4 because my daily life, my office life, I'm in the office more now. I'm not working from home as much, so I'm not able to make as many podcast episodes. So now it's easier sometimes to just throw up a YouTube video quick and dirty, or actually it could be even easier to do interviews because again it's one take and I get split both video and audio, and that could be a podcast and a video for the week or for the 2 weeks. And so it's yeah, the form of it has changed as my day job has demanded more of my time. But I still look at it as podcast as the long form and YouTube as the short form for me. So
Cool. Not dope. And that, nah, it's like, I think it's pretty dope. Like, you can, because I think you talked about how you can use even some of the same content across platforms. I think that's become pretty common down, like nowadays.
yeah.
Right. And kind of seeing how, in some cases, you have two different audiences. So it's bringing the same content over to a different audience who may follow you on podcasting as opposed to like on YouTube or whatnot. Like, what about, like, so when it comes down to, like, with your, like I think with Hallmark, I know you talked about some things that are coming up. Like, do you have any upcoming projects right now for those who are Hallmark listeners, or I'm sorry, watchers and listeners, because they're going to be following your podcast after this. But like, or you get some more folks. But like, what are some of the things that you have coming up right now that are like, yo, this is on again? You mentioned something a second ago, but like, because you're also a Hallmark ambassador, is that right?
Yes, that is
Cool.
true. I'm a brand ambassador for the channel. And I can't believe I didn't mention it. Out of all of this, I completely forgot.
Right. You know, it's all right. Listen,
Um,
listen, it's okay. I
yeah,
got you.
man. So quick story about that. So I entered a contest last year, actually, and someone reached out to me saying I should enter the contest, and I was like, no. It was a number one fan contest. I'm like, I love the brand, but I'm not a fan. Like, I just don't like the word fan. Fan gives me like Justin Bieber groupies, like I didn't want to be associated with that connotation because that's what I felt like it was. I was like, I want to do it. But they were like, I think you should, I think you should, I think you would be really good. So I was like, fine. So I did it. And then I got a call back. I got into round two, which I got a phone call, did an interview or whatever. And then did a Zoom situation. And then next thing I know, they're saying, so you didn't win, but what we're going to do, there's 8 of us. We're going to we are the 8 finalists for the contest. And so they made us brand ambassadors, and Hallmark's word for it is called fan leaders. And so we are Hallmark fan leaders, and we kind of lead the charge of the fan community. And so from August to December, bro, I felt like I was on a plane every other month. It was wild. Um, so they would send us stuff to do giveaways. We got exclusive sneak peeks of the movie that we could post on our
Mm,
social media. And then I had the wild opportunity. I mean, I can't say thanks to the actors being on strike. It was unfortunate that the actors was on strike.
mm,
However, as it pertains to me, fortunately, because they were on strike, we were tapped to tape. 3 of us were tapped to tape Hallmark's Thanksgiving special,
mm,
which it's like that's their premiere weekend of movies during the holiday season. Like that's when they put on their blockbusters. Like they put on their heavy hitting, when it comes to plot, when it comes to the actors, like that. Thanksgiving is it. Thursday, Friday, they premiere 2 movies on Thursday, 2 movies Friday, 2 movies Saturday, and I think 1 movie on Sunday. So you got 7 movies in 4 days. And you got to think about the podcasters who review all those movies. They have to watch all 7 of those movies. But anyway, so yeah, that happened. And then yeah. What was the question? I'm so sorry because
no,
I
no,
forgot
like
in,
no,
in telling the
yeah,
story, like it was wild how it all happened.
right, right. No, like that's great. Like I just brought up the idea that you're I didn't butcher the name. I said brand ambassador. You said it's fan leader.
No, but that's how I refer it to other people because I
Right,
I feel like coming off first by saying a fan leader, they're like, what is that? So
right,
if I say brand ambassador, people can make the connection and know what that means. Because in essence, that's what we are. Our brand ambassadors. It's just that we are the network's kind of homegrown garden of brand
right,
ambassadors.
right,
So
right, right.
yeah.
Yo, that's and I'm listening to you say all this. You know, your Dara's yo, she's flying to Tokyo. You know what I'm saying, to Paris. To, you know what I'm saying, to
First of all,
Jamaica. She
don't
flying
lie
to
to the people.
every continent on the planet. You know what I'm saying. As a matter of fact,
Richard, don't do it,
she actually
Richard. Don't lie.
her and Elon right now, they talking. They about to send her up. No, but they're about to put another satellite up there. They call it the Dara USS Dara or something like that.
I
But
can't.
anyway, that was whack joke. But
I
listen,
can't.
but anyway, but no, like because I'm listening to that, and it's to bring it back to even the idea of a niche, like because you could have just just took the route of like, I just want to just whatever, I'm going to put out something that is going to make me a lot of money. And just in terms of just by nature of, by making, you mentioned earlier about your why, like just you could have just taken that route, which may not have been well Hallmark, because it's just like because the idea is this that maybe not as many people would appeal to as maybe, and then the flip side happened is that so many opportunities opened up by you just going with something that you're just passionate about, something that you just enjoy doing, something that you want to create space for other people who like the same content, the same movies, and you guys can connect around the same thing and finding your audience and finding like your, I won't say find your tribe. I feel like tribe is like such a buzzword nowadays, but like to find
A
your folks,
buzzword. But
right?
yeah, by
Right,
my
but it is,
peoples.
yeah, find your people's like, and then that itself was opening up some of those doors. But that was you, you kind of very sticking closely to your niche and everything you're doing, kind of reflecting things that you enjoy doing. But so
Can
what's
I just interject? I
yep,
apologize. If
yep,
I could just interject, I think, Mike, like, I genuinely love this stuff. Like, even like I haven't received $1 what I'm doing.
mm,
I genuinely love this stuff though. And if I never receive
mm,
a nickel, I don't care
mm,
because I genuinely love this stuff and I love talking about it
right,
with people. And I think that like people pick up on that. They're like, oh, like because I also talk about movies that are bad. And I was like, oh no, they were on Zoom for this movie. They didn't show up. Like they weren't there. They were dead behind the eyes. Like what's going on? Like I've had
right,
to say that for a couple of the movies. Like it's been that's a whole other story. I'm about to get on soapbox. But like I genuinely love this. So I'm just appreciative that God's been able to open doors. Like I mentioned earlier, like the fact that I can explore my interest in this way instead of just I could be content just being at home DMing somebody and watching the movies. I could be, but like
mm,
there are people who actually care about what I think about a movie. Like that's wild to me. That
mm,
is wild and crazy kids to me. So I am just grateful that I have this space to do this. So I
yeah, yeah.
apologize. Go ahead.
No,
I just
no,
wanted to
like
interject that.
no, interject away, interject. I interject. I felt my seat how quickly you were, how strongly you were interjecting. I'm like, oh, with all like the dad jokes, corny joints today. No, but no, because like you can see that like you're excited and passionate about it, and it's like that. But that speaks to all your all that comes out. It comes out as really authentic because you're talking about something that you genuinely like to do. You're not faking anything. It's just like it comes off that way. And again, I think that's what it comes to with some of the interviews and people that you meet with, and it's really dope to see that. And I feel like yeah, I think even for myself, like as I reflect as someone who wants to kind of who's out here in these content creating streets, who kind of like pokes my head in and out,
Yes.
but just like yeah, who just it is different when you're talking about something that you just like to talk about, and you just can
Mm-hmm.
connect with people around a common interest, and so you can say followers and fan whatever. It's just people who are just genuinely just connecting around something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which these different platforms have kind of allowed us to do. I think that you've kind of like you've been sticking with that for years and kind of just been plugging away at it, and it's been pretty dope to see that things kind of expand with that. Um, what's like something that you would what's something that you would I don't know to encourage someone who's just kind of like I feel like you shared a lot already, right? In terms of I think everything you said was super helpful for sure. I think for someone who's interested in just I don't know, just thinking through what should they do, or even someone who's out there creating right now, just to encourage them, like to keep like just focus on what's your why and something that you're passionate about. Keep plugging away at it, keep connecting with folks. But what would be something that you would encourage someone to do who's like anything else that you would add to that, like just to encourage someone who's like maybe just starting, who's thinking about launching a podcast or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be.
Well, outside of finding, like, knowing your why. I would say the second thing is don't compare yourself. Because that, like, even though God told me not to look at other people in the, like, in the beginning, eventually I did. Once I got thrusted into the community, I did. And that created this whole tailspin of me second guessing myself and who I was and what I bring and what I contribute and am I good enough, and kept like one of my friends knows, like I kept saying, well, what about this interview? Like I didn't, and I feel like not saying that you can't follow others for inspiration or to even just connect with people in your specific space, whether you're in gaming or cooking or reading, whatever it is, but kind of having tunnel vision on what you're creating so that you're not you don't your stuff doesn't get tainted with other stuff, because you know how sometimes, and I think Pastor Naj, like we got to witness this a little bit, like if or even use, and this may, I don't want to speak for you, but maybe this is something that you do, like when you are in a creative zone, you try not to listen to other things so that you can just, like, you want to make sure your voice is being heard through whatever it is you're creating. And so that's what I would say for anyone who's wanting to begin something, or maybe they're in the middle of it and they've kind of plateaued and they don't know what to do with it. A, keep going. B, start. C, don't worry about anybody else, because like I mentioned before, you were made specifically and uniquely. So nobody has a voice like you, and no one can process information like you. No one has a perspective like yours, and no one can put to words or pictures or dance or song or podcast or whatever. No one has your perspective because you're one of one. And so by that alone, you're already carving out a lane for yourself. So don't get muddied and fogged up by looking at other people's houses and lanes and over the fence at what other people are doing, because it could and can and will trip you up to the point where you're questioning yourself, like, well, what am I doing here? Why am I even? And then now you're questioning your why. When you came in flat footed, knowing why you were doing this. But as soon, and that happened to me, because as soon as I started looking at all the other interviews people were getting and how they were, I'm like, dang, should I still do, like, should I interview those people? Knowing dang well, like, I don't have a genuine interest in them, because I interview people specifically. Like, there's a reason why I'm interviewing people. There's like a specific point of connection, of interest, of curiosity that I have that sparks a conversation that makes me want to talk to that person. And I think that's why you're able to see me have those type of conversations, because I'm genuinely interested. But nobody else would have that perspective like you do. So don't worry about what others are doing, and focus on what God has given you, if he indeed gave it to you. Or even if you're just trying to just step out of your comfort zone, do it. Walk on water. Peter did for a little bit, but then he started focusing on the storm and then he drowned. So just keep walking on water. It's okay if your sneakers get wet. It's going to be all right.
Continue walking on water. It don't matter if your sneakers get wet. We're gonna let that one just sit for a second. Just continue to walk on water. It doesn't matter if your sneakers get wet. Just keep focusing on Jesus.
Buddy.
Moral of the story.
No, but yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
he is the ultimate creator. Like, this is the one thing I love about Jesus the most. Like, how creative he is. Like, the way he healed people sometimes. He didn't have to heal people the way that he did, but like, even in that creativity. I mean, okay, I'm sorry. I feel myself getting some.
No, that's it. Like, maybe lean more into that. Like, what as it, because you talked about, this being something to kind of because I feel like a lot of times it's from being a Christian who's a content creator versus someone who's not a Christian who's content, like, it should be a something that is something that's different, like something that, even from an inspiration standpoint, like something that, like, our framework is a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? Or something that
Absolutely.
it should be something that connects us back to to Jesus as whether a motivator or
Yeah.
some type of framework, some lens in which we see it should be different from those who are not. Maybe you can lean more into
Yes.
that. Like you can go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead and spit that. So like what as a Christian, like what's kind of like the
Yes.
framework that you operate from? And I think you kind of just started to allude to that a couple different points, but like what would you say is kind of like is yeah, what's that framework for you as a Christian when it comes down to that?
Absolutely. So I'll talk about this from a writing perspective. For me, the Bible is the biggest source of inspiration for me. I think it's wildly inspiring. And this may be, controversial. I don't care. But I love the Old Testament. I think it's so cool. Like the way that it's written, the literary devices that are used, like
Mhm.
you see why people are studying it in college. Like there's something to glean from it from a literary perspective.
Mhm.
But I think God has given us such an unused tool. I'm about to say one of my favorite words. Mike, do you know what it is?
Create. No,
Imagination. You were there.
imagination.
You were close. You were
I
close.
was, listen, I was on the
You
right
were,
page, wrong paragraph. I
you
was
were,
on the right page though.
listen, you were in the ball field. You were in the ballpark. You were in the ballpark. I saw you sit down on the seat, but we were just
Yeah.
almost there. That's it.
I had my
But like
cap and
God,
everything.
listen,
Right.
you were there. You were
Right.
there. But like God has given us this wild abstract thing called the imagination that I feel like as adults sometimes we can be numb to or have allowed to atrophy as we grow older, because of just life experiences or even certain, what's the word I want to use, not doctrines, but like certain ideologies that we
Right.
that we think about when it comes to people who are imaginative, which is why I love C.S. Lewis so much.
Yeah.
And because it was me reading Chronicles of Narnia in winter 2017, the beginning of 2017, January, February. That's what really broke it open for me. I was just like, this man is brilliant. And the way he was able to write a children's, ultimately, because it's in the children's, if you go to Barnes and Noble, you will not find Chronicles of Narnia anymore in sci-fi and fantasy as it used to be. It's now in the children's section. But yet adults are able to read it. Adults are able to enjoy the movies of it. I talked to one of my security guards in my building when I went to see the play of Prince Caspian, told him what I was doing. He was like, Prince Caspian is one of my favorite movies. Grown man. Prince Caspian is one of his favorite movies.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like God has given us such an infinite well of creativity and wisdom from the Bible alone. Just as a Christian, the fact that we can read Psalm 23, Philippians 4:8, Psalm 1, Genesis 1,
Yeah.
Colossians 3 over and over and over again to the day we die, but still apply it to our life and see it differently.
Right.
How much more as creators can we use the Bible to create and find new and refreshing things to create with? And so that's kind of the flag that I wave from a writing perspective, is I really want people to come, I want the Bible to come alive for people and for them to see how applicable, specifically the Old Testament, because the Old Testament gets a bad rap in a lot of Christian communities as like stale, or they don't even pay attention to it. They just focus on the New Testament. And it's like, no, 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 no. There are jewels and gems within the Old Testament, which is kind of like a second part to what inspired Chasing Wind, because even the title is based off of one of my favorite books of the Bible, Ecclesiastes. It was one of the first books I studied for the first time in the Bible, like actually went through. Shout out to Kay Author. I did a part of my study was she has a guided Bible study
Mhm.
of Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, and Lamentations. But like starting that really started my journey in unlocking just how amazing God is as a writer, A, B, how applicable Old Testament principles are now. And so I want to be able to adapt that in literature form. So that's like my Christian life from the writing perspective. And how that translates into Dear Hallmark. While Hallmark isn't necessarily Christian, I still make sure that how I guide myself in terms of, because the leading men in Hallmark, the women folk feel a certain way. Okay. And so I try to make sure I don't assimilate myself to the way certain women may react to how some of the men folk on the network make them feel, if that makes sense. So, and also too, Hallmark has a line of gifts called Dayspring, and it's a Christian line. Like if you ever get Christian Hallmark cards, you'll see on the back it'll say Dayspring. That's their Christian line of gifts. They have Bibles, devotionals, notebooks, Bible covers, bookmarks, cups, everything. And so now they've been adapting that line into movies. So we've had uh two one two Christmas movies and two Easter movies. And what I'm appreciating, and I kind of said this point blank in this year's Easter movie, because they actually had a pastor in it this time who was the lead. They were talking about faith and God a lot.
Mhm.
And so I explicitly talked about how, like, if we're going to do Dayspring movies and they're explicitly Christian, we can't pity pat around it. Like, we got to go for what we know and be Christian. We can't be like, this little tiptoeing in our Jordans and the tulips. We got
Mhm.
to just really go for it. And then I also like, and I talk about my faith a lot on my podcast.
Mhm.
I I talk about my relationship with Jesus, what I'm going through sometimes as to why they may not have heard certain podcast episodes. So they are and I had a chance to interview one of the actors from the guy who played the pastor in the Easter movie. I had a chance to interview him this year. And because the movie deals with grief and loss, and we had just lost our former pastor, I had a chance to talk to him about how my relationship with God was shaken in that moment, like how I was able to see God in a different way in that moment through that experience. So there's things that I'm grateful that I've been able to interject, for lack of a better word, or kind of infuse into Dear Hallmark, although it's not as explicit as the writing half of me. But people definitely know. And even in my Instagram stories, like I try to share a lot of the Dayspring content to let people know that it's out there. Because a Hallmark, before the leadership changed, what had a Christian bend to it. While the president at the time, or the CEO at the time, was Catholic, like there was a talk show called Home and Family, and he had Lisa Bevere come on there and promote her new book. Jonathan
Mhm.
McReynolds would come on and sing.
So,
Max Lucado would talk about like his new devotional, things like that.
yeah.
So it had a Christian bend, and so it had a built-in audience. But because there was the changing of the guard in 2020, that the lens has shifted, and so I'm grateful though that I'm able to still inject that Christian bend into it. I feel like I said a lot of words. I'm sorry, but
No,
yeah,
listen,
that's
it was awesome. I think that I mean it's dope because I mean God wants us everywhere. Like He wants His people scattered,
Mhm.
all types of, all areas, all walks. Going back to what you said about Him giving us our different, kind of bents, like different things that we're into, different like desires, and
Yeah,
things that we're kind of like interested in.
yeah,
Ultimately, to use for His glory. The Bible says that He all things were created through Him, to Him, and for Him. Like everything was created
yes,
to give Him glory, and ultimately it's through His people. Well, one of the ways in which He does that is
yeah,
through His people. And so, which is pretty dope for you to function in that space, but also to approach it with a Christ centered biblical worldview. Old Testament and New Testament. Listen, we hold Bible Christians over here, right?
hello,
Whole Bible is, I mean, even when Paul wrote, like all Scripture is God breathed.
all
Really
of
gives
it.
a reference. It's everything, but as a New Testament wasn't completely. He was really referencing in context to the Old Testament, but everything obviously the New Testament is included in that. So the whole Bible is inspired by God, period. Old Testament, New
Here,
Testament. So like you see him all throughout that, for sure.
absolutely.
And so like to bring a Christian worldview into a creative, space, or to content creating, it's like we're really reflecting God. It makes sense for Christians to kind of be in this space as well. Which is pretty, yeah, it's pretty dope to kind of see you function in there in that space, and to be excited about stuff, and to do that in an area that is 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 welcome, is open to that, at least like in terms of the fan base being able to hear, you kind of speak about those things, influence in that way. So I think that's dope. And maybe think about something you said earlier about the whole comparison piece. Maybe think about
Mhm.
this New Living Translation. This is Galatians 6:4 says, pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the
Mhm.
satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. And I think what you said earlier, it really connects what you said about you focusing on you, what you're doing to be so it's not even necessarily let me try not to compare myself to other people, but let me focus so much on my own work, what I'm putting my hands to, what God put in my heart to do, and let me kind of just focus in on that and grow that. And and simultaneously that helped me from, hey, God bless them, I can be inspired by them, but I don't need to
Absolutely.
compare myself to that person or to that group of people to the point where now I feel insecure about what I'm doing. And I let me shoot it back and I'm
Absolutely.
like, it's not like them. So let me kind of back up. It's like, no, we all have to start somewhere. We all got to like start at
Absolutely.
ground zero, and then we just get better over time with the things that we do. Just in general, any skill, whatever, you get better at the things we
Absolutely.
do over time. But the key is to continue to keep doing it. So that's no, I think that because I remember the original question was like something to leave with folks who are just kind of thinking about getting into the space, whatever. I think that's such a huge kind of point to really focus on, because comparison would definitely wipe out a lot of people, like have wiped out a lot of
Absolutely.
people. So many ideas stifled, so many
Absolutely.
different things. Great ideas that can really really be helpful to many people have really been dormant because of comparison. And it's like, this ain't the time for that, because like you said earlier, like we all bring our own uniqueness, we all bring our own
Absolutely.
interests, we all bring our own person, like who God made us. And people need that, like believing that your folks are
Absolutely.
really looking for this. That I just don't see it yet because I haven't really stepped out to do it. So I think just that, and I think I look at you and what you've been doing, it's like an act of faith. You're just stepping out and saying, listen, I'm just going to do it, and
Mhm.
I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm just going to keep doing it. And it's just kind of, and what God does with it, He does. And so I think it's been dope to see that. So
Yeah.
you mentioned a couple of your
Thank
books,
you.
like no problem at all, no problem. How would people, if someone wanted to, oh, 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 y'all can excuse that, you know what I'm saying? That was my manager giving me a call. He stepped out for a second. Nah, so like how would someone like get in contact with you or like follow your stuff? You mentioned your podcast, YouTube and stuff like that. You mentioned your books. Did you mention both books or just
Yes.
good?
Yeah, I mentioned both
Both
books.
books. So
Yes,
if
yes,
someone
indeed.
wanted to like, check you out, and they're really like, yo, I really want to I want to check out what Dara's doing, how would they do that?
Yeah, so Chasing Wind is available on Amazon in both ebook and print. That is the novella inspired by the book of Ecclesiastes. It chronicles the life, not the life, but a significant moment in time in our main character, Sydney's life. She's graduated college and she thought her life would look a certain way, but it's not. And so she tries, there are certain situations that happen where she is able to acquire this life that she always thought she wanted. But then she realizes, is this the life that I wanted? Or is she chasing it? Hence the
Mm,
title.
mm,
And I would also encourage people to read the book of Ecclesiastes as
yeah,
well. I think it's so appropriate for this era, for this time with this social media era. I think it's so appropriate. But yes, Chasing Wind is on Amazon. And then Inhale, I believe you can get it from barnesandnoble.com. It's not sold in bookstores. And I think the ebook for Inhale is on Amazon. I'm not completely sure.
mm,
But if any event, Inhale is on barnesandnoble.com. And then I also have an ebook that I randomly published during the pandemic called Moon Talks. And it was
mm,
inspired by just random thoughts that kept me up at night that I wrote in my notes app and then expounded upon. So I would call them maybe like a book of essays.
yeah,
There is one short story in there where I tell the account of Jonah from the fish's perspective, because I've always wondered, like, what was the fish thinking about when God told
mm,
him, "Yo, I'm gonna need you
mm,
to swallow up this homie right here"? And it's
right,
like, so I wanted to explore that. And so that's in
yeah,
there.
right,
And that's on Amazon. So that's through Kindle because that's Amazon's ebook platform. And then for all of my Hallmark content, if you're actually interested in watching any of my interviews that Mike has mentioned, I did have the chance to interview Tamara Mori Housley because she does some Hallmark movies. And I got a chance to interview Terry J. Vaughn, or as we know affectionately in the Black community, Lovita Alize Jenkins. From the Steve Harvey Show. She directed a Hallmark movie. Dear Hallmark is on YouTube. And then my podcast is anywhere your ear takes in podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify. And then I'm just Dear Hallmark on Instagram. And that's me.
That's you. You acting like you just said like two things. You drop like a whole. She said you also got an album coming out, you know what I'm saying?
Don't do that.
Tomorrow. It drops at midnight, you know what I'm saying?
No,
Featuring the
not
homie.
even.
I'm actually bringing together Kendrick and Drake on this joint. Like it took
First
some
of all,
time. J. Cole making an appearance, but we
oh
working together.
gosh.
We working it out, man. You're gonna be
Can I just say
gonna be a feature on the
before, because
segment.
I know you're about to do a benediction and close this out, but before you do that, can I just say I'm glad you're doing this again,
Mm,
because I think your voice is needed. I think your perspective is needed, and I'm grateful that I'm able to help you out in this way. But I'm also grateful that you're getting back at it.
yeah.
So thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate my cash app
Mhm.
is hashtag was $ Mike. No, no, I really appreciate it. I definitely appreciate I certainly appreciate it. And yeah, so it's life be
It's been
life.
a journey, fam.
Life be life, man. It has been. Like it has been interesting for sure. But I appreciate
Yeah.
you and other folks just being an encouraging ear in that regard. And you're doing what you're doing. Yeah, I'm really excited to see whatever happens. Because you're gonna be South Africa like probably by the end of the summer somewhere.
I
Hallmark,
can't.
Hallmark, South Africa. They probably got something happening. I mean, Hallmark is
They
big.
did film a couple of movies in South Africa before, but
I'm not saying I'm a prophet. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I'm not saying that. That's not me. That's not
somebody
what I'm
come get
saying.
him, please.
That's not
Somebody,
me. I'm not saying that though. I'm not saying.
somebody come get
I'm
him,
just
please.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm joking. But no, definitely appreciate it for sure. Yo, definitely check out um, yeah, for those listening, man, definitely check out Dara. Everything she just dropped. Make sure you go support and just kind of tune in, man. And yeah. Anyway, all the books, the podcasts. I know people who gonna listen to this. I know it's gonna be some Hallmark lover, even if what I'm saying, some either you are a Hallmark lover and watcher, or you will probably become one at some point. I would venture to say, possibly. I think you should do it. I gotta get a TV first. I'm just saying, I got a TV at my house. But you know what? We're
You
gonna
can
get one.
stream on your laptop. There's options.
I'm
You
tripping.
got friendly.
I'm acting like it's 1998 or something like that. It's 2024, bro. Bro, we got all
Alert.
types of stuff like
There's
that.
it's about streaming. So
Exactly.
there's streamers with Hallmark on it. I'm just saying, no excuse.
There are no excuses at all. I'm not anti Hallmark. I've seen some movies that were pretty dope. Like I just haven't got into it. But I'm not anti Hallmark. Listen, I just
I
want to
know,
say,
and that's the thing. Just because you don't watch it doesn't mean you're just necessarily anti. It's just like you don't watch it, and that's okay.
yeah,
Like
right. It
people
was
watch
it,
different things.
it was some Christmas movie where like I think it was an angel and the boy was getting shot at, and it was some Christmas movie I was watching. I think the day that you were doing the it was like the special. I think you guys were on TV like for a couple days. I think it was. I think one.
Oh, oh, was it the like they had to go back in time? He was wearing the suit, and he wasn't like
No, it was
he
Santa.
wasn't.
That's what it was. I think it was Santa or his son or something like that.
Oh,
That's what it
catch me
was.
if you claws. Yeah, and they were trying to figure. Yeah, because at least he didn't really get shot. At least I don't know if he did. I don't know. But that was an interesting movie. That was definitely out of Hallmark's comfort zone. That
Okay.
type of movie. So
You
yeah.
got fools getting shot in a Hallmark movie. Imagine that. So,
Well, and that's what I was gonna say. Like Hallmark has a mystery channel, and they're mostly all murder mysteries.
uh,
So that's also why it was different for Hallmark to air that
mhm,
on channel, because
right.
that would have aired on the Hallmark Mystery Channel as a Christmas movie instead of airing on regular channel. So
Got you, got you,
yeah.
got you. See, all this
Hmm.
Hallmark love, man. I gotta tune in. I may check out the Hallmark Mystery Night. But
You
definitely,
should. I think you would like it. I do.
yeah. I probably would. I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out. Hallmark. I think I got a new watcher. I'm just saying. Your fan was actually I'm just gonna say brand ambassador. It's a fan. Is it what is it called? Something fan. Something fan. I'm messing
Uh-huh.
up.
Uh-huh.
No, what's the first word?
Uh-huh. If you're not a follower, you're a
Leader. Fan leader.
boom.
Leader fan.
Boom.
Fan leader. All right, cool. Your
Come
fan leader doing
on,
her job, Hallmark.
catchphrase team. Come on, taboo team.
Taboo. Taboo.
Taboo.
All right, y'all. Plots 215. Dara Alston. Appreciate you, fam.
Thank
And
you,
let
sir.
me yeah, we're gonna close out. With that being said, y'all, we out. Peace.